Hello, my name is Paul David Haygood. I'm a retired Chief Warrant Officer 5. I was assigned to the Pentagon the morning of the attack on September 11th, 2001. It started off as a normal day. I usually got up around 5 o'clock and headed into the Pentagon and arrived there a little before 6, and things were going well. I was in a meeting with General Edmonds. She was the Director of Sustainment, Deputy Chief of Staff G4, and I worked in maintenance policy. I was in her office at the time that the towers were hit. We were sitting there discussing a briefing we had to give, and one of her people came into the office and said something about one of the Twin Towers had just been hit. She immediately stopped the meeting and we were headed back to our own office. From there, I had met my boss, Colonel Moorhead, and in the hallway, roughly 20 feet from impact at the time, we ventured back into our office, and about the time we opened the door and got into our office area, the building shook. It shook like you thought it was an explosion. I wasn't really sure what had happened at the time, but I did think about the plane that had just hit the Twin Towers. We assumed it might have been a bomb initially. But quickly, our office area and the surrounding areas to the office started to fill with smoke. About that time, Colonel Moorhead and I started doing evacuation procedures to ensure that people were getting out of the building and preparing for whatever we thought might have occurred. I stood there where the ballistic doors were, because they have ballistic doors that will close in case of a fire or an attack, and I was there, and Colonel Moorhead started low crawling through the smoke to other areas. It was definitely a day that I won't ever forget. There was a lot of turmoil, a lot of assumptions being made. We really didn't talk about it until later that day, because after the attack, it took Colonel Moorhead and I about 2 hours or 3 hours to finally meet up across from the Pentagon, and we helped a police officer direct traffic for several hours. But as the day went on, we realized that it was more significant than a bomb. We started hearing rumors and reports that a plane had hit our building. Something like this has not occurred since the bombing and attack on Pearl Harbor. So to say that we were prepared for an attack like this is just not even realistic. We were not prepared for an attack like this on the Pentagon. We've made all kinds of contingency plans for fires and for bombings and things like that, but no one was prepared for what occurred that day. We continue to help evacuate people, help wounded, and help recovering people out of the building. Set up a triage area in the center part of the Pentagon. If you've ever looked at the Pentagon in a diagram, in the center court, you see these trees and stuff. Believe it or not, there's actually was at the time when I was there a restaurant in that area. So we set up a triage area there, and we started providing first aid and comfort to those who had been injured seriously in that attack. At some point in time, Colonel Moorhead and I were separated. We were told to evacuate the area. I linked back up with him as we were leaving the building some hour and a half or so later. And as we left the building, there's a medical detachment assigned to the Pentagon, along with a dentist and several other things. And the medic was asking us to help get supplies. He didn't have a key. We didn't have keys. What we ended up doing was breaking into the pharmacy, helping him get the medical supplies needed. We helped him get him back to the center of the Pentagon area as additional people had showed up to provide first aid and comfort. Throughout that morning and during the attack, we were called to go back into the Pentagon. Colonel Moorhead ended up flagging down a vehicle and taking some people to the nearby hospitals. I ended up going back in to the hospital. Communications were a complete shambles. Cell phones weren't working. Phone lines were not even working. It was just a complete shambles as far as communication goes. I was able, believe it or not, if you're not aware of the Pentagon, it's got several rings that are created, and in between the rings, there's just open space that you can look up and see the sky. Well, we were positioned near where the plane had gone in and had destroyed that part of the building. You could still see the flames. You could feel the heat of the flames. Unfortunately, we were being told we couldn't go in there. Firefighters were pushing us back. They were in their firefighting outfits, and it was really heartbreaking to us because, instinctively we wanted to go in and help people. Unfortunately, the people we really wanted to help were no longer alive, that we would find out later. We eventually had to evacuate from the building, and I ran into Colonel Moorhead yet another time, and we ended up over across from the Pentagon on the other side of the interstate, helping direct traffic with his police officer. As I look back at what took place that day, I don't think there's anything I could have done differently. As far as the military goes, they prepare you for a lot of things. They make you physically fit. They send you to different schools. They train you in safety. They train you in first aid. They train you in a lot of areas. But one thing that we never ever thought would ever happen was being attacked on our own soil. I don't know that we could have done something differently. I know immediately after the attack, one of the best sounds I heard was some F-16s flying overhead and basically doing really turn and burns. You could just hear the afterburners kick in as they would streak across, and it made us all feel really good knowing that we were being protected while we were on the ground. They pulled in some air defense units to support both the White House and the Pentagon and the capital of Washington, D.C. And so, having looked at all those things, I'm not sure that we could have done anything better. When I look back on those days, it made me feel that we should have been able to do more, but we weren't able to do more. But what it did make me realize is that all the training that we had, everything that we had done, prepared us in many ways for that day.
America's giant. Untold numbers dead, a war is drawing near. Many people injured, I can only shed a tear. Soldiers are returning to be sent right back again. Screaming, moaning, weeping echoes all throughout the wind. Mothers losing children, people losing lives. Workers trapped in buildings being forced to take their dives. Damage unpredictable, rumors spreading around. Horrific sight of two large buildings crashing to the ground. Many people hurt, hospitals overflowed. Awake, O sleeping giant, let America's powers show. The gateway is now open, the nation shall unite. You shall receive your battle, be prepared for a fight. Our morale grows larger as people die before our eyes. Just like old Pearl Harbor, you will pay with much demise. You blew up what we cherished, are lives you have destroyed. You shall regret your actions when our army is deployed. So in this poem I tell you, you have made a big mistake. Now I guarantee you, our giant shall